Who do you guys think gets traded before or during the 2022 NFL Draft? It has been a bonkers year so far in the NFL. A lot of chaos, a lot of moves, and they're probably not done yet, the NFL is. So let me know in the comments which player or players you think gets traded during this year's draft. Tom Downey of Chat Sports here to break down the top NFL trade candidates entering the 2022 NFL Draft. Like we've said, it's been a wild-ass year. So who's next for some big-time trades? We begin with one of the more obvious names, Baker Mayfield. It's a matter of when Baker is out in Cleveland, not if he's done with the Browns, but the timing is uncertain. Also, what's making things complicated is his contract. 1 year, almost $19 million. The Browns might have to eat some of that given the year Baker's coming off of. It was a regression year for Baker. He was really good down the stretch of 2020. Looked like a top 10 QB. And I thought he was going to have the step forward. But he was hurt, and he struggled, and the Browns' offense was bad, and Baker was the biggest reason for that. Not the play calling, not the O-line. His value is at an all-time low, and the Browns would probably have to eat some of that money. The other big-name QB out there, Jimmy Garoppolo. And if I had told you, or if you had told me at the start of the offseason, hey, it's going to be mid-April, at the end of April, and Jimmy G is a Niner still, I would have said, what are you talking about? No way. Well, here we are. Big contract, and the shoulder surgery, I think, has had a big negative impact on his trade value. The Niners are in that holding pattern. They've not done anything. They can cut him whenever. They can cut him and move on and save that money, but they're hoping for a trade. Maybe that's Carolina. Maybe they wait for someone to get hurt. But Jimmy G at this point is apparently fine with, because he's not going to make all $25 million this year, just waiting, which is, it's pretty awkward, to be honest, for both teams and the QB. So pick a QB. Who would you rather trade for if you were a quarterback-needy team right now? Maybe Seattle, Carolina, or somebody else. BM for Baker Mayfield. JG for Jimmy Garoppolo. Let me know in the comments section. We'll stick Niners here. Deebo Samuel. Yeah, this is the biggest name on the list, right? He has requested that trade from the 49ers and would likely get a massive new contract. We know what Deebo can be. We've spent a lot of time on him, so I'm not going to, blabber on about Deebo Samuel. We'll also mention instead some other star receivers who I don't think get dealt, but then again, I did not think that Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams would get dealt or that Deebo would want to trade in the first place. So I don't think DK Metcalf, McLaurin, or A.J. Brown get dealt, but if contract talks are bad, just keep an eye on them. Another receiver, Laviska Shenault, the Jags wideout. Jacksonville's added a bunch of receivers this offseason. And Chenault's cheap, a former second-round pick. You think, well, maybe there's some value there. And at first glance, you see, he had 63 grabs, 619 yards. First off, terrible average. Really bad. No touchdowns, 8 drops. 8 of them. That is a significant number. Absolutely massive number. That is a huge red flag for any team that adds Shenault. I don't think his value is anywhere near what the Jags spent on him just a couple years ago in the draft. Now, if players get dealt during the draft, look, we'll be live for it. We'll break it down. So you should watch every single pick of every single round with us here at Chat Sports. We'll be live before, during, and after grades, recaps. We've got you guys covered. So if you haven't already, subscribe. YouTube.com/ChatSportsTV. The draft is my Christmas, and I am very excited about what's going to happen this year. Another receiver, and then it's more Giants after this. Darius Slayton, not Kadarius Toney. Toney showed up, and now the reports are the Giants are shopping Slayton. 1 year, $2.54 million left on his contract. His numbers took a nosedive this past year. He was a vertical throughout his first 2 years. Awesome first-year production. Similar but lower touchdowns, less efficiency in 2020, and then in 2021, although I would probably blame the quarterback for that standpoint. The value's low, but I think you should be able to get a fifth or so for Slayton, somewhere in that range, as a one-year cheapish vertical threat. Next up is Saquon Barkley. The Giants are down to listen to anyone and on anyone in a potential trade. Now, his contract is a problem. 1 year, $7.2 million for a guy that hasn't been good in 2 years. And 2019, he was volume average-ish. Not exactly the ideal perspective from that one. 2018 was awesome, but you got a quickly aging running back with injury problems who's expensive. Those guys don't carry value. So in the end, I think Saquon's going to stick in New York. If you want NFL news, rumors, and of course the single best draft coverage out there, hit that big red button and subscribe today. YouTube.com/ChatSportsTV. No one will have you guys more covered for the NFL draft than we will at Chat Sports. A very likely trade candidate, I believe, is James Bradberry. The Giants have been shopping him for weeks. They've been shopping and waiting and trying to find somebody to take him. And the Chiefs have been heavily linked. The contract's a bit of an issue. 1 year, $13.5 million. Maybe they finesse that somehow one way or the other. But Bradberry, I think, is done in New York. They'll cut him or more likely, I think, end up trading him. His production dipped this past year, make no mistake, but he's not a bad corner. And, I mean, I've seen some of the corners out there in the NFL. Bradberry can still start for me. So he's a bit expensive. That will keep his trade value down. I would bet he gets shipped off for a day 3 pick to a team like KC, depending on what they do in this year's draft in round 1. So the 3 Giants players on this list, who is most likely to be dealt? SB for Saquon Barkley, JB for James Bradberry, or DS for Darius Slayton. Interesting name now, that is Grady Jarrett of the Falcons. Bit of a notable name. He's had a lot of success in the NFL, but he's not been the same level of impact guy he was earlier. And his contract is a problem. 1 year, $16.25 million. Would the Falcons eat some of that money? Maybe, but also, who wants to pay him that straight up? So again, that's the problem for a guy. You see the production dip, right? 12 TFLs, 8 and 3, 7.5 sacks, 4 sacks down to 1. That's a red flag for a player approaching the wrong side of 30 at this point in his NFL career. So I think the Falcons would love to trade Grady Jarrett. I don't think the value, though, is very high for him. Let's get to our somewhat recent early round picks who have fallen out of favor. That is A.J. Epinesa first up with the Buffalo Bills. Cheap contract, 2 years, just over $2.5 million. Has not been productive in his brief NFL career. Epinesa is now behind guys like Von Miller, Boogie Basham, and Gregory Rousseau. So he's edge 4 in Buffalo. I think you could get Epinesa if you wanted to. I think you could also get K'Lavon Chaisson, a first-round pick out of LSU who was always going to be a developmental guy who I liked the upside, hasn't come close to coming through yet. Also, again, bad production so far from Chaisson, although I would argue Jacksonville is not a good place to go if you're trying to be developed because that's a poorly run organization more often than not. Hopefully it changes with Doug Peterson now in charge. Not great pressure rate, but he was a first-round pick. The Jags are willing to listen to trade offers for players like Chaisson. What I want you guys to do right now is shout out your team, your favorite team in the comments, and then name who you'll want them to trade for. So it's a 2-part ask, but I want to see a lot of comments. Shout out your team and who you want them to go trade for. Former first-round pick Noah Igbinoghene. Next up here, since Byron Jones, Xavier Howard aren't going anywhere, he's a former first-rounder who can't get on the field. He hasn't played for Miami. He's always been out of favor for whatever reason. Maybe it was a Brian Flores issue. Maybe it's not. So maybe he gets another chance. I think he'd be very cheap to acquire via a trade. Then there's Andre Dillard, the left tackle with the Philadelphia Eagles. When he's been out there, Dillard's been a very good football player. Now, he's not a great run blocker, and that is reflected in the PFF run grade here. Again, I know it's PFF. I know everyone likes them. I get it. Nobody else does offensive line stats, so I got to do what I can there. I think he could start at left tackle, and I was asking some of our Eagles guys here at Chat Sports, like, hey, why hasn't he been dealt? And their answer is, well, I think it's true, by the way. You know, in general, that front office likes to have a lot of coaches, or a lot of offensive linemen, So Dillard carries value unless they get a premium pick back. But if I were a team like Carolina or Seattle, and I don't go tackle in round 1, I would be offering a pretty premium pick later on, day 2, early day 3, to get Dillard from Philadelphia.